I love the idea of calling this episode "What If It Worked?" And this is my great friend and somebody that I've just really been impacted by. It's kind of fun the way we met and synchronicity and everything like that. But I want to welcome Katie Richardson to the Rise Up with Dragon podcast.
Great morning, world! Welcome to the Rise Up with Dragon podcast with your host, Dragon!
That's a fun intro, isn't it? It is. So, welcome everybody. Very excited about this episode. And I noticed today that I say that all the time, but I'm going to try to convince you that I'm like extra excited about this episode. So you heard a little bit about her, and this is my great friend and somebody that I've just really been impacted by. And it's kind of fun the way we met and synchronicity and everything like that. But I want to welcome Katie Richardson to the Rise Up with Dragon podcast. Hey, Katie.
JC, super honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
So before we get into everything, and I think we spoke a little bit about that. Katie and I shared a stage at this really fun event that was really unique in the sense that they used music to really incorporate. And that was by a good friend of ours, Greg Kimple, the Final Percent Summit. So when you go to these events, you have the opportunity to hear all the other speakers, which is kind of fun because when you first get there, you don't know each other. So Katie just randomly happened to be sitting right next to me and Chicken. And you can see that I have a picture of Chicken on the wall here, Katie.
Love her.
Yeah.
Love her.
So, and I always, whenever that kind of stuff happens, I always say, oh, interesting. And then, finally we go look at the pamphlet and we said, oh yeah, that's that person right there. But then I got the opportunity pre-show to learn a little bit about her, learn a little bit about her story, which you'll be exposed to in a second. But it's different when you're kind of just talking table side and stuff. So I just, what I learned about Katie is that she's amazing. She's very proud of who she is and where she comes from. Her kids are paramount. She can't show a picture or talk about them without getting choked up. And that's something that I resonate with on a big scale. She's done miraculous things and now gone on, as I said in the intro, to kind of pay it forward and help other people do miraculous things. So that was the first thing I noticed about you, Katie, is when I heard your story, and I want to get into that right now, it's amazing what you went through and what you created and what you accomplished. But what I found more amazing is that you didn't rest on that and receive that and have that. You actually made a decision to go and teach other people how to create their own that. So I love the idea of calling this episode "What If It Worked?" And welcome to the show. So,
I'm super excited to be here, excited to have this conversation. And mostly my hope is to really help your audience gain some clarity and really identify some actionable steps, right, for them in their life, not just inspire them, but really help them see their next move.
I love that. Cut the fluff. No fluff here. We actually, we've got someone here that wants to provide you with some actual tangible steps that will create actual results in your life. So Katie, we got to go over the story. I mean, if anybody's heard about you before, they've probably heard about you through social media or news, and because you got a lot of exposure about this creation and this company that you had started. But in the intro, I talked a little bit about this moment where you started seeking and you started learning crafts and things like that. Take us back to that time and where you didn't know what was about to happen. I'd love to, because that's where everybody else is. Actually, everybody might even be pre that. But what was going on in your life that made you step out and start trying things and seeking?
So we're talking the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, correct? Yeah. I mean, one of the things that people are surprised to learn about me is I didn't know I was or wanted to be an entrepreneur for a long time. I am first and foremost a designer and creator, and that's what my specialty has been in is product design. And I love problem solving, and in particular, solving problems that maybe nobody else has solved or figured out before, or at least innovating and solving them in a new way. And so I was this, college student who was newly married, who had several kids and had chosen to stay home with those kids and was not working professionally. I would take consulting jobs on the side, that kind of thing. But, I kind of had thought that my professional career in a lot of ways was at least on hold, maybe even over. And I had had a lot of success in school. I'd won a scholarship from General Motors. I'd won national design awards and gotten a lot of attention. And so I'd kind of proven myself as a designer in my mind. And was in this place of being a young mother and loving that, by the way, loving it and feeling a lot of fulfillment from that. But at the same time, there was this piece of me that was not being fulfilled. And I kept trying to ignore it or shove it down or, fulfill that side of me by making crafts at the kitchen table with the kids, which was fun and great, but it wasn't at that professional level. And I just happened to be in a baby boutique with my kids, and they were essentially wearing a lot of products that I had made, a hat, baby shoes, a baby carrier that I had made and designed. And the business owner just like attacked me. And she said, "Where'd you get all this stuff?" And I was really unsure of myself at the time. I hadn't really proven myself as a designer in the real world. I'd had a lot of success in school. And so I was just unsure of myself and kind of didn't know how to respond to her. I didn't want to assume she loved all of the things that I had made. And so I asked her specifically to point it out, and she did. And it was all things that I had made. And she said, "Where'd you get all this?" I said, "Oh, you like it? I made it." Again, just really unsure of myself. And she said, "You made this. I want you to make it for me. I go to all the trade shows and this is hot. I want it in my store." And I was like, "Oh, yikes." And I'm like in my really small thinking. I'm thinking, okay, can't you see I have these kids and nap times? Like maybe I could make a couple for you. And I was thinking small. And I didn't understand how I could make products for the store. Like, sure, wouldn't that be fun and exciting? But I just wasn't even open to the idea.
Let me ask you a question about that. Go back because you work with people like this. You work with small thinking people now.
Sure.
So let's have a session with you and old Katie, right?
Yeah.
Because I heard someone today say something that really rang. This was somebody that was going through a similar phase of their life, and they said they started to journal, and the way she put it is she found herself trying to write herself into existence so she wouldn't disappear.
Wow.
What I hear is that when you were going through this phase of like expressing these, you obviously had a knack for creating things and craft and all that stuff. I mean, it's a little bit in a good way abnormal that you started like getting into like metal work and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But when you were in that phase, what can you go back and see that you were trying to do? Were you trying to create your way into existence? Were you seeking like what was going on right there as far as, because from your expertise now, what was going on?
Yeah. So I was not trying to create myself into existence. I was trying to be who I thought God and my family thought I should be, and who I had also decided that I should be, right? And to me, that was a very kind of proven path. And there were certain things that are okay to do in that. And then there are certain things that are not okay and were looked down upon. And so I was trying to fit myself very perfectly in that box of what a good or righteous wife, mother, daughter of God is. And without realizing it, I was forcing myself in a direction that wasn't congruent with who God had created me to be. And it was confusing to me because I thought I was going down the path that He wanted me to go down. And consistently, I had, like, this store owner is one example. I also had a creative director at Nike pull me aside at a mutual friend's party saying, "Hey, I see the stuff that you're making. I think it's super cool. We should go overseas and manufacture it." And I just, like, I was getting stuff like that all the time, JC. And I just kept pushing it away because it didn't fit my description of what my life was supposed to look like. And the thing that helped me break out of this was, well, one, the conversation I had with this woman. I was giving her all the excuses and reasons why it didn't fit into my box of my life. And she listened to me for a moment, and then she grabbed me by the shoulders, looked me square in the eyes, and said, "Look, I understand that you're really busy and you have your hands full right now. But in 5 years, those kids are going to be in school full time, and you're going to look back. You will wish that you had done something with your gifts and your talents." And that did not sit well with me. And I think that was the first time I also realized it didn't sit well with God. Like, I know he wants me to develop myself. I know he's given me talents and that I'm supposed to develop them. And I even was starting to admit that they needed to be developed in other ways than just at the kitchen table doing crafts with my kids. And so I was in this double bind, and it was like, but how do I do this? Because in my mind, the two worlds were not compatible. And that's when God gave me a new thought that I'd never considered before. Because as I was in this wrestle and trying to figure it out, we ask a lot of questions, and oftentimes we're not asking the right questions. But I was in this wrestle and I was asking a lot of questions, and I was trying to figure out, okay, if I do start saying yes to these opportunities and I do start being a entrepreneur, professional, whatever you want to call it, and a mother, how do I do that? Because I need to know that that's possible and that I'm not going down a road that ultimately is destructive and not creating the life that I want. And I wasn't willing to do that. So I start looking for the man, the woman, the model, the person, the evidence, the proof that I can both create a business, start putting my products out there into the world, and have a strong, loving marriage, be a present mother, be active in my faith, and not have my life fall apart. Like, that was the fear. Yeah. So I'm looking around, and honestly, I'm checking out books from the library. This was like 2006, 2007. I mean, Facebook just had weird high school kids on it, honestly. And so if she existed, I couldn't find her. I couldn't find the example and the proof that going down this road could lead to success in all of the areas that were important to me. And so I'm starting to kind of push it away again. And that's when God gave me a new thought. And he said, "Look, Katie, you're trying to find the woman that proves that this is possible. And the reality is, I've taught you creation. And while you may not see her, you have the tools and the know-how to create her." And JC, that moment set me free. Because in that moment, rather than trying to fit into the box of the perfect woman, it was, look, stop trying to do that and just go create who you want to be. And use your gifts and the talents and abilities that I have given you and your choice and agency in arranging that in a way that can accomplish these things that maybe seemed impossible. But if you create yourself to align with all of those, then maybe it becomes possible. That's what I did.
So many people are going to resonate with that in their own way. It's almost like what happened is that when you had that moment, and I always refer to that moment like where everything just makes sense and you gain clarity. I call it the snap. It's what happens in effect is the box actually just, you realize there is no box, right? It was a self-created box.
Yeah, it's a
Bought
lie.
into something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to be so careful what we put value to. Here's what I'm thinking. And I actually just got the chills thinking about that. I'm just imagining this woman. Was it a woman or a man in the store?
It was a woman.
It was a woman.
Yeah.
So I'm just imagining when she grabbed you, I would assume, I'm just making an assumption, that she saw you about to do what she screwed up. And that's why she grabbed you and said, "Trust me." So, I'm somebody that wonders if this is all a game and a simulation theory and all that stuff. I'm just wondering if that woman, maybe her role was she was sent by this man you keep talking about, that you've been so eagerly trying to serve. It's interesting. Have you ever gone back and spoken to her?
You know, her store is no longer in business, and so I have not. But I talk about her in almost every podcast interview because
She,
she was so pivotal.
she might have,
She
might have been.
planted a seed of doubt in that belief of the box, essentially, and it was like, wow, you know, that regret that I was feeling potentially 5 years in. Usually we like fear the future for opposite reasons, and she had me fearing the future in a really powerful way that moved me to action in that moment, in that day, right? Not from a frantic place, but of a, wow, like, I want that, and I don't wanna make that mistake.
I believe some people call them angels.
Absolutely.
Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting? And,
Yeah, I don't think it was an accident that she and I met.
and we can't find her,
We can't find her.
but she's there.
She's
So
there.
anyway, super cool. And the lesson there for somebody listening and inspired by that, because you might say, oh, but Katie, but not me.
Right.
I think all Katie probably did was allow herself to be open. Maybe you were thinking with your heart rather than your mind at that point. Am I right?
I tend to lead with that most of the time.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So now we have this new window open and this new like amazing like sunlight coming into your life,
Mhm.
which also comes at a cost, right?
Yeah.
Because now when you do get that clarity, because they say that our biggest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure, right? And that's why most people hold themselves back. But now you're opening up and you're allowing yourself to move forward to that. And you got to figure out how to do it, and you have this epiphany about creation. The box disappears. Tell us a little bit about the passage of pain to get to this point. I mean, from what I remember in your story, you were offered, the universe and God offered you 20 or 30 times to quit. So take me through that a little bit.
Well, the process of creation was about, I'm a really visual person, and so I actually started very visually, and I couldn't even imagine what this woman looked like. And so I started cutting pictures out of magazines, and it was on the back of my bathroom mirror. So every time I, went to get the toothpaste or put my makeup on, I was seeing these images that were reminding me that I was creating a woman who maybe didn't ever exist. And it was somebody who was new, that was making different decisions than maybe I had made in the past, and giving myself permission to do those things, and being prepared to have conversations with friends, family members, loved ones, that maybe were uncomfortable, and being willing to stand firm in my place of decision. So that was a one of the first things that I did was, yeah, give myself permission to start doing, being, saying, doing things that maybe I'd never done before. And it wasn't that I was being somebody that I wasn't. It was me fully uncovering this woman that I believe from conception was created infinitely within me, and giving that more eternal version of myself permission to exist in my life. Yeah. So building out that vision board and being willing to say, do, and be things that I hadn't done in the past, not as a fake, by the way, not as a fraud, not as somebody who was hiding something, but as this is a choice and a decision that I'm stepping out into the world. And I'm not hiding something, I'm not faking it.
Yeah, that's kind of the birthplace of the thought in my mind of calling this "What if it worked?" Um, that's a conscious decision to open
Mhm.
yourself up to that. So part of that, it sounds like, when you started creating a vision board, you opened this door of saying like, the truth is that I don't yet know what I could be, but I know it's something. Right. So that's awesome. And I see that in your speaking skills and the way you coach people. I think that's why people admire you so much and you get such positive results, is they can see themselves in you, because you've carried all of that with you, and you're just maybe a little bit more polished and highly functional now. So when you went into this, tell us a little bit about the concept of the product that you created, because a lot of people probably know what that is, and the idea of like going to market with it. Because right now, first challenge is allowing yourself to dream big, and allowing yourself to like confront, I don't know what this looks like. I don't know what the model looks like. I don't know what the vision looks like. And you keep going. But once what was the epiphany that like got you in full bore, full frontal motion of like going into manufacturing it, creating it and all that?
Yeah. So we have this big long-term vision, and then we have the reality of where we are, right? And in between the two, there's a tremendous gap. And there's so much unknown in that gap. And oftentimes we can get paralyzed by the unknown and caught in the fear and not taking action because we don't know all of the essential information in that gap. And one of the gifts that I feel like God has given me is kind of a faith and a confidence to walk into the unknown, and a belief that I will figure it out as I come up against it. And that's the choice that I made. I had kind of started to develop this bigger dream and vision, but there was so much unknown around it. And so I started with where I was at, which was, I had local stores in Portland, and then I went to Seattle and San Francisco. I had kind of regional stores that were buying a cut and sew product that I had developed that I could manufacture on a small scale, that didn't require huge capital investment to make 1, 2, 3, 4 production runs. And so that's how I got started, was a cut and sew product. And anybody who's in physical product and manufacturing, that might make sense. But
It gave the product an identity, though. It was like a thing at that point.
Yeah, it allowed me to develop my brand voice and values, kind of the mission and purpose of the company, and even start to establish some distribution channels. But the thing that I knew about those cut and sew products is they were not patentable, and therefore I couldn't fully own them. I was kind of having some quick wins because I understood trends and was able to kind of fit within trends, but there was no intellectual property there. And so I knew that in order for me to really establish my brand, both domestically and internationally, and to really grow and scale my business, I needed ownership of these products through the intellectual property. And as a product designer, I know that process. Like, I know how to innovate. And so I looked at the products, by the way, are in the baby space. The company's called Pudge, PUJ.com. You need to go look it up. It's really incredible stuff. And so literally over a Christmas break, my husband and I, who's also a product designer, by the way, and is a big part of this story, he and I said, let's come up with a product that will allow him to quit his job and for us to work together, and will become a foundational product that will allow us to build a whole suite of products and build a whole company off of. And so we knew it needed to be innovative. We knew it needed to be unique and special. We knew it needed to solve a really critical pain point. And as I'm talking about like that's just one piece of it, JC. It was like, yeah, the product. There's so much more beyond that, right? It's like, okay, can you innovate and solve a problem there? Is it patentable? Can you trademark it? Can you own it, both domestically and internationally? Can you build up distribution? Can you set up manufacturing? Can you get the funding? Like, there's so much that comes after that.
All things that you were not a black belt in.
I was not a black belt in any of it. I did not have a business degree. I had maybe experienced a little bit of it for clients as I was a designer, but it's totally different, like pointing people in one direction versus doing it yourself. And then even the funding piece, I mean, there were so many different moving parts and pieces. And the reality is they all had to line up beautifully right at the same time. Like, timing was a major issue too, right? This product that I had developed over Christmas break that I knew was going to be the thing that was going to allow my husband to quit his job. Like, it was an idea on paper. Like, in a lot of ways, I still didn't have anything. So what we ended up doing is we proved the concept domestically, and I got manufacturing a few hours from my house. They delivered late. It was extremely expensive. I couldn't build a business off of it, but it required low capital and, honestly, less travel. And so we were able to develop it and prove the concept domestically. And then what we ended up doing is we took it to a trade show, and from that trade show, we basically had to get everybody who came into the booth to place an order. And what ended up happening is that very thing. And that moment changed my life. But the important thing that everybody who's listening needs to understand is I had failed significantly 1 year prior. And I would like to tell that story if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I think that's the story people don't hear. And oftentimes it's the story also where people wave the white flag and say, this is not meant to be. I'm just not good at this. I shouldn't try. I shouldn't be so ambitious.
Well,
So,
you mentioned before that you started to notice that something about you is that you started to push into, we Ryan Holiday says the obstacles away. Like
mhm,
anybody that's ever at the top of the mountain, when you have a conversation, everybody goes, "Oh yeah, so many more losses than wins," So you start pushing into that, and here you are. We just raced through this crazy story that she has. She's going to share a piece of it now, but it would be very easy to say, "Oh, she's pretty. She loves God. She's got great energy. Of course, she's successful." But now Katie's coaching other people that all can be that successful, and we'll get to that in a second. But we're about to unveil that formula that everybody knows, but they don't want to admit it when it's happening to them.
yeah.
How the road is riddled with spikes in the road and tolls and speed bumps and accidents and all that stuff. So let's hear about some of that.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I look at my story and I'm like, oh, she's so lucky. And the reality is, it was not luck. Sure, maybe there were some elements of luck, but it was excruciating hard work, and it was a commitment to a life and an outcome that I was so radically curious about and committed to learning and discovering. So we had been selling this product on a small scale. Like I said, US manufacturing, super expensive. It was $100 for this baby bathtub, and people were buying it. And I was getting weekly requests internationally. Again, this was like 2009, 2010. By this time, I had a website, and almost every week I was getting international requests for this product, and people were paying almost $250 just in shipping for a $100 bathtub. So in that process, I was like, okay, I think this is going to work. And I take it to a trade show, and I was with a sales rep who had relationships with Target and Costco and Nordstrom and other big .coms too. And everybody came into the booth and they were really curious about this new way to bathe the baby. And they were asking me all kinds of questions. And let me just give you a sense of my reality. Like, I was at the end of any savings that we had had. This is where I start to get emotional, by the way, because it was that dire. I was at the end of all of my savings. I had 2 boys. I was pregnant with our third. I was literally living on food storage. I was grinding wheat to make 4 loaves of bread a week for my family. I'd gotten really incredible at making all kinds of meals out of essentially rice and beans. Like, the amount of meat and protein we were eating was quite limited if it wasn't in bean form. And because I was so committed to this future vision that I was curious about. And so I take it to this trade show and everything's riding on it, JC. Like, it had to work. We were out of our money. We were out of time. I was exhausted. I knew that the life that I was living was not sustainable. I was going to be bringing in another baby, for heaven's sakes. Like, we needed consistent income, and we needed to know that this was going to work. So I fly to New York. I couldn't even afford a hotel. So I reached out to a friend that I knew from design school, and I knew he knew people in Manhattan. I was like, is there a couch I can sleep on? He connected me with somebody I had never even met. I show up, I sleep on her couch, and I'm like taking the subway to the Javits Center. I couldn't even afford new clothes. So I went to Forever 21. I think I had like $47 to try and piece together a couple new outfits. And I'm there speaking to, big players. Again, I didn't have a business degree. I was barely at the level where I was starting to get this prototyped, and I was hand making the packages that it went in. And they were asking me all these questions, and they were saying things like, what are your lead times? What are your case minimums? What's your wholesale price and your retail price? Do you carry insurance for this? And, what are your terms? And they're just asking all of these questions. And I barely made it there. And they're asking questions like are way further down the road than I've even been able to think about, let alone I'm just not even there.
You're just like, I just want to sell it. I just want to
I'm
sell
like,
it.
yeah,
Can
I'm
you
like,
guys, can you
here's the
guys hear
order
me?
form.
It's
Yeah,
like,
like, how
okay.
many do you want? And they have all these questions. And honestly, I was way out of my league. And I'm doing everything that I can to field their questions and not curl up in a ball and just start sobbing because I'm just that overwhelmed. And at the end of the show, I had 0 orders. It was devastating, devastating. I had 3 products in the booth. 2 of them were ones that we were doing kind of low volume manufacturing, cut and sew products. And that one was supposed to be the thing that kind of made it all work so my husband could quit his job and we could fully do this full time. And so to have 0 orders at the end of that, it was totally devastating. And to put this into perspective, I remember flying home and doing whatever I could just to even get myself to the airport because I honestly I just couldn't even afford a taxi. And so I remember taking buses and trains. And at one of the train stations, there was like a food place. And I realized I didn't get a souvenir for my boys. And this gets me emotional. I was like, I got nothing, nothing. I reached in my pocket, had a few dollars, and I didn't even have enough money to buy 2 cookies for my boys, but I bought 1 and came home and I shared that with them. And it was just so embarrassing to get home and to face my husband who believed in me, believed in what we were creating, and to just be like, look, it didn't work. It didn't work. And he's one of those other angels in my life, JC, because I was ready to give up. I'd put multiple years into this, all my savings. I had tried so many times to test and prove myself. And it was like, to me, it was just not even arguable. This was a failure. And I started to let in the old voices of maybe this isn't what you're supposed to do. And you shouldn't have pursued this. And see, you tried and you failed. And now you need to go back to living within the box. Like that's what I was considering in that moment. And
Retreat to the box to let yourself off the hook.
oh,
It's
totally.
yeah.
Totally. To not expand, to not become who I had the potential of becoming. And as I'm sharing all of this with my husband and I'm confessing to him that I'm a failure, he's asking me all these questions. And he says, I keep telling him, look, everybody said no. He said, they didn't say no. I'm like, no, you were not there. They all said no. And he listened to my replay of the whole situation. And he paused and he said, Katie, they asked you questions that you didn't know the answers to. I'm like, yeah, so? He said, well, we just need to answer those questions. Answer those questions and they'll all buy. Answer those questions and we'll be shipping this product all over the world. And when he said that, my body was on fire. And he was right.
Did that ignite you when you said that? Or yeah.
Big time. I mean, the reality was I was still grinding wheat. I was still wearing the same pair of jeans I'd been wearing for like the last 5+ years through multiple pregnancies. My bank account did not change. Nobody showed up and said, I'm going to finance all of this. But what changed was he framed it in a totally different way. And rather than seeing that experience as failure, he said, we now have the perfect blueprint for success. And I saw all of those, quote, failures as learning points. And I said, I've just got to go answer all of those questions. Literally, I need to learn from all of those failures and learn the answers to those questions. Like they were handing me the blueprint. I didn't see it. They were handing me the blueprint and saying, basically, Katie, for you to have a viable business, you need to know your lead times. You need a wholesale price and a retail package and case pack minimums and MOQs and insurance. Like they basically were handing it to me and saying, go figure all of this out. And so I did. I figured it all out. And it was not easy. And there was continued difficulty, right? But I just kept saying, I'm just going to take one more step into the dark, and I'll figure it out. And I did. And ultimately, we went back to the trade show a year later. And that story in itself, oh my word. Like just the 3 days leading up to that trade show, it was failure after failure after failure after roadblock after roadblock. Like the fire marshal tried to shut me down like 5 hours before the event went up. He said, this booth is a fire hazard. You need to take the whole thing down. Oh, don't worry. There's Kinko's over there. You can go print a couple banners. I was like, are you kidding me? Like he tried to shut me down and I navigated that. So the reality is, if we can look at those obstacles and those failures as learning points, you will propel yourself forward to tremendous success, the level of success that most people never get to experience in their life. And it's because you had the faith, the courage, the tremendous what is the right word I want to use here? The audacity to believe in yourself and keep moving forward.
You know, this is, if people, I always wonder how my listeners are hearing things and receiving things and what it's doing to them. And I think it has a little bit of, has to do with timing and how self-aware they are. But I just want to hit on a couple of things that I heard that I think really need to just hit rock solid, because everybody's the same. It's just we all have our own unique way of looking at things because of our programming. So, you know, you're hearing Katie talk about her life and the things that happened to her. Everybody would react differently to them because everybody's different. So she used the word luck before, and there's so many ways to talk about luck. But I always looked at myself as lucky because the big guy in the sky gives me potential every day.
Yeah.
Right. I never expected him to gift wrap something. And it's just so fascinating to look at a saying like, everybody loves to say this one. They go, God works in mysterious ways. And the reason why we think it's mysterious, it's actually extremely calculated and
Yes.
intentional.
Yep.
You know,
I call it a divine orbit.
there you go.
Yeah.
That's why when I sit next to Katie and, oh, you're a speaker, and I don't just like say, oh, that's weird, and walk away. You know, like, I'm aware of the fact that the universe and God are in full favor of me living to what it is that I was created for. So I don't look at things like this as mysterious or happenstance or anything like this. If you become conscious, and this is what you had to, God, I hope is your husband Tony Robbins? Like, or
He's amazing.
Your
He's
husband
so
should start a
amazing.
coaching company, because what he has the ability to do is come and just drop a seed and let it grow in somebody's head. Because all you really did right there was lose sight of the fact that everything was falling right into place.
Yeah.
Tough, easier said than done.
Right.
So, okay. So moving, I mean, unbelievable story. And I hope that somebody gets, the courage to practice audacity as a result of that. And, you know, all I would say is you can have faith in that zone of power. You can. So play with it, have fun with it. So this thing turns into this big thing, and, you know, and here you are along the way, it explodes, and you're starting to like become somebody that you didn't know you could become. What was that like to receive that? Oh, here's Katie Richardson, the success story. What was that like for you?
It happened very quickly, because this trade show that took off, it was over 4 days. And, you know, halfway through that show, literally everybody who came into the booth was placing an order. I was writing order after order after order. And it was me, my husband, and my best friend, who I had flown out to Vegas, who was basically my global sales director. Right.
You brought your husband with you that time. Smart.
Yeah. And we were in our own booth this time. We were not being represented. We were not a small piece in somebody else's big booth. It was like, no, we're making a statement. We are going out. We are here to stay. And it was incredible. And maybe sometime I'll tell you the story of that booth. It was beautiful. And like, it was so custom. It was incredible. And internationally, we were starting to pick up accounts at the show. And what's interesting is, you know, as we move forward and step into the dark, we start to bump up against our current capacity. And I was doing things to create myself into being able to continue to move forward. But at that show, in a sense, my husband, in a really great and incredible way, he exposed me. And what happened is, we were at the booth and people were placing orders. And I can't remember if it was the first or second day. It doesn't matter. He pulled me aside at one point and he said, "Where's Katie?" And I said, "What do you mean, where's Katie?" He said, "You're not being yourself." He said, "And Like, as much as you can, you're pushing people off onto me and to Diana. Like, where's Katie? And I cracked open and I just said, Ben, they believe it. Like, when you create a brand and products, you saw when it was just a sketch on a piece of paper. And then all of a sudden people think it's real. And in a sense, like, I wasn't caught up to seeing and believing what they were believing, right? I saw the mess in my garage. I knew that I didn't have a business degree and that I was making promises to people that I was hoping our factory could deliver on. But I was going to have to go find the funding. Like, I knew all of that and it was scaring me. And so even though I was placing orders, there were new fears that were showing up and it was starting to destroy me. And so in this conversation, he said, what's going on? And that's when I said, look, like, they think I'm some successful businesswoman. I am not. And I'm just a mom who's weaning her 1-year-old who's trying to figure this out and doesn't know how she's going to fund everything. And, I saw I started to see more of the elements in the dark, so to speak, and it was scaring me. And again, he said something so beautiful to me. He said, look, they're not expecting you to be something that you're not. Just be Katie. Be Katie and ask them, do you want 25 or 50 tubs for your store? And I knew who I was, JC. And I think in that moment, I was kind of trying to be, again, somebody that I wasn't, right? I was trying to fit myself into a new box. I'd picked a new box and I was trying to fit into that box. And that moment kind of broke me out of it. And I remembered that I'm somebody who genuinely cares about people, who likes solving problems. And I have created a solution that solves many people's problems. And these store owners are kind of a bridge between me and that other parent who's in pain. And I instantly made this shift. And I became an incredible saleswoman in that moment too. And it didn't require any sales training. It was me showing up as somebody who's being present with people, who cares about their customers and wants to solve problems. And I became a very good listener, a very good problem solver. I was connecting with people on a very emotional level. And all of a sudden, like, that fear of selling people and taking their credit card, it just disappeared instantly.
Okay, so we have to grab this because it's very easy. People can very easily live vicariously through somebody else's story. Everybody wants to be happier, healthier, and wealthier, but they all struggle with the same thing, and that's executing it. And when we hear somebody else share a story of how they did it, it makes sense, but you might unconsciously just be making sense of how she did it.
Right.
So what I want to hear from you, and then we can kind of move into the realm of what it is that you're doing now, because you subsequently, she sold this company.
Mm-hmm.
That's, what I said in the intro, what I love about Katie is she created this amazing thing, and you're hearing this whole story, but then she sold it. And now she's going and she's decided to go teach other people. That's a special person. That's not like saying me, 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 me. Now she's going saying you, 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 you. But just to get everybody back to center, why is it that most people will not go through that? Is it that they don't have your husband? Or what is it? Like I wrote down there, what is it that Katie has that everybody has, but maybe doesn't know? What's the special sauce that drives somebody to go through, as I did in my talk, the poop? Because we all know what's on the other side. This is not the first story that you guys heard about this. What is it? Because I want you to move into coach mode now, because you got a lot of non-believers listening and then also those talking to you. What is that special sauce?
Every decision, thought, action, win, success, failure that we make in life stems from one place. And it's our current believed identity, who you believe yourself to be. And your reality is built and created not because of what you are doing. That's a part and piece of it, but it is more so about who you are being in the world. As a business owner, as a parent, as a leader, as a teacher, as a professional, as in anything, like who we believe ourselves to be. And the reason I have been able to expand in my life and have like really exciting levels of success is because I was willing and bold enough to put my believed identity of the moment on the chopping block and begin to even question it. And that can be really scary sometimes, JC, to like the ego does not like that. And it's afraid of it. It's scared of it. The ego wants to keep us in a place of comfort. It wants to pull us back. It wants to keep us small and comfortable, and it wants ease, and it wants the known. It wants control. And so to be willing to take who I believe myself to be and to begin to question that, it takes a certain level of faith. And faith in I will figure out the answer. But to step into the chaos of the unknown like that can be really scary and terrifying. But on the other side of that, I have learned consistently the rewards, the achievements, the success that happen for me when I'm willing to do that. And the temptation is to kind of to look outward, right? And to think, oh, I need this person to do this thing, or I need more money, or I need a relationship here, or I need to get to this level of revenue, and then I could do those things. Then I can see myself that way. And it's a huge mistake because you're already taking action from internal decisions and beliefs. And so if you can look at those internal beliefs and to match them with the future vision that you want, the actions become self-evident and we don't have to force them.
Okay, so I love that, but I'm going to challenge it.
Go for it.
Just because I know the people, and
I'm talking in big concepts. I know that.
No, it's great. And you know what? Because you're shifting people, and I know some people that approach you get to the phase where they say, I want, and they say, I believe, things like that. I'm motivated. I heard you speak. I'm excited. But then when it comes time, I would assume it's some phase of the intro to working with you, there's a question, something along the lines of, are you willing? And then their response is, I don't know.
Yeah.
So where do we guide somebody from that place that knows exactly what they need to do, and they might even know they can, but when you challenge, are you willing to, do whatever it takes, do the hard work and everything, and they say, I don't know. How do you help that person?
I don't go anywhere with anybody until we start telling the truth. And so people can say they want something, but I need to know if their actions are lining up with that. And we've got to be really honest. And it's uncomfortable at first. It's painful. There's usually a lot of emotion around that. And I'm trying to think of I have so many examples, honestly, with my clients. I had somebody who was in conversation about potentially working with me. He was complaining about his health. He was complaining about being overworked. He had too many businesses, and it was creating certain situations in his marriage and also impacting his relationship with his kids. And he was on the phone essentially kind of complaining to me. And we talked about the changes required to get him to the point where he's living his quote dream life, and the literally tactically the changes he would need to make in order to do that. And I said, are you willing to do that? There was this really long pause, and he said, honestly, no. And I was like, okay, it looks like then you actually have the life that you want. He was like, I guess I do. And that stung for him. But we can't make any progress until we get to that point where we establish the truth.
Yeah, that's such a powerful word, and a word that, the truth sets you free, but
Yes.
it's also frightening.
It is.
When you say, I love, and once again, everybody's going to hear that, and they hear you say, listen, we don't go anywhere until we start telling the truth. I think the challenge that a lot of people have, and they might wake up different tomorrow, is that they are not ready to tell the truth. They've been sold some sort of an idea that the first convention they go to, everybody's going to order it, even though you don't know what you're doing, or it might. And interesting that we named this "What if it worked?" because on the unhealthy side of it, people are irrational in their idea of what could work, even when they know what the formula for success is, and back to the luck we have because of God, accessible to anyone, right?
Yeah.
Much easier when you have a guide. So tell me a little bit about we're talking a little bit about the relational component. Tell us a little bit about your system with coaching before we close out, because I want people to know. We'll put all your information in
Cool.
the notes, and you have a podcast as well,
I
correct?
do. My podcast is called What's Working Now,
Perfect.
and it's
Perfect.
awesome. Yeah, you can hear a
So
lot of my story and interviews with exceptional entrepreneurs.
what's the system like? When somebody works with you, what can they expect?
So my coaching is extremely custom. The people who work with me have had tremendous success, and yet they're frustrated with their level of success because they know they're capable of so much more, and that the success they have is the result of just scratching the surface. And what has gotten there has been an old operating system. It's been old thoughts, old actions, old patterns, and old beliefs. And it's created tremendous success for them. And they think they need to do more of that thing, right? And in a sense, they got to that level of success because they were able to run faster than everybody else. And so this belief is now, okay, that I need to run even faster than I am now. And when they look at their life and their reality, that's just not sustainable, right? They're already not getting enough sleep. They're not spending enough time with their family. They're already doing too much of the actual tactical work at the business. And so they can't figure out why they're not achieving that high level of success that they even know how to do it, right? But something's getting in the way. And what they start to become curious of, maybe it's me, maybe I'm getting in my own way. And they're starting to believe that, but they don't know even what that means and how to even make it actionable. So they know that they're the one getting in the way, but it's confusing because what they've been doing is the reason they've been successful. So, what I teach my clients to do is to fully dismantle that operating system and to maintain and keep the things that will continue to help them grow and be successful, and to evolve the things that are now getting in the way. And we essentially are writing new code, and we're creating a whole new operating system. And it's one that feels a little strange at first, and even a lot of times doesn't make logical sense because they're gauging it off of the old system, right? Of running faster. And what I'm showing them to do is different. It actually has them running less. And what happens as a result is we're collapsing time. And I have a client who started working with me 30 days ago, and he was in that tremendous amount of pain and was looking forward and said, the way I'm doing things is not sustainable. He's a really smart guy, JC, super smart guy who's done really incredible things and had come to that realization that maybe I'm the one getting in my own way. He didn't know how he was getting in his own way, and he was open to that possibility, but he couldn't see it. So from this outside perspective, I start to show him all of the ways that he's getting in his own way and show him the new operating system. And if I'm to hyper simplify my coaching and what it is that I do, I believe you have the power within you to create this business already. And what's getting in the way is you are operating in a non powerful way. And I help you see where you're showing up non powerfully. And I show you how to make the shift to a place of power where you're aligning with the gifts and the talents and the integrity that God has given you. And what happens as a result is, rather than forcing the results, which ultimately is what they had done in the past, rather than forcing these things to happen, it just naturally starts to flow out of you. And you become the creator of your life, your business, your relationships. You are intentionally creating all of these things, and you are able to take that forward vision that you have, and then you have the tools to reverse engineer it, and you literally are creating it pulling it into your reality. And it's no longer a dream. And this client who started with me 30 days ago, like he had big dreams that he wanted to accomplish in the first 90 days of our coaching. And we're already almost halfway there, 30 days in. It's incredible.
Something just blew my mind. So first of all, I love the analogy of time collapsing. And I'm very, very big on the old and the new operating system. But what I just realized is that Katie Richardson has actually figured out time travel,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is like a big deal because
Yeah.
everybody's sitting here waiting for like some sort of machine to take them into the future. But what they don't understand is that in their current operating system, they're not moving into the future. And if they can rewrite their operating system, they can accelerate, thus time travel. Katie
Yeah.
Richardson has figured out time travel. I love it.
And my clients would confirm that, JC. Like it blows their mind when they start to experience it because they kind of had to have faith in me as I describe these things to them. It just doesn't make sense to the logical mind, yet they've seen consistently the results of my clients. And so they have faith, they move forward, they implement what I'm teaching them. Again, it doesn't make sense to their logical mind. And then very quickly they're seeing the results and suddenly their awareness has expanded tremendously. And they literally step into this place of being the creator of their life. And life becomes limitless at that point. It's just, well, what can I imagine? What can I envision for myself? Okay. And then now how do I reverse engineer that?
Yeah. I'm just thinking about some concepts that I have that I know consciously hold me back. And if I go back to where I was taught that concept the first time, it felt uncomfortable then too, but then I got used to it like a cigarette. So I would say that there's no difference, you know, if you work with somebody like Katie Richardson and she introduces elements of this new operating system and you're uncomfortable with it, it's probably a good sign.
Yeah.
My last question to you before we close out, what is Katie Richardson most afraid of in life?
I would say it's almost my one and only greatest fear would be to, leave this life, meet my maker, and to not have become who he created me to be. If you can't tell, that's not okay with me.
I
Yeah,
kind of knew you were going to say that.
I'm not okay with that. And like the rest of life, I know I have a strong belief that life is conspiring in my favor. And so even the things that maybe in the moment feel hard and painful and difficult, I know that they're ultimately there to serve the infinite eternal Katie, and that I'm there to learn something from them and to grow and progress from those. So there honestly there's not a lot that I do fear, and not to say I don't experience anxiety and doubt. I do, and I use all of the tools that I share with my clients. But yeah, that's my greatest fear. But at the same time, like as I'm saying this to you, it's like, but dang, Katie, you're you're like working really hard to not make that happen. So
It's fascinating. I always love that question at the end. So, Katie, so awesome. You know, you're one of these guests, and I know that the listeners are going to be thinking, you know, it's over. So, you know, I'm sure everybody enjoyed it, but I sure did, and I, you know, took a lot of notes, and I just love the organic nature of the way we went back and forth. So this is definitely one for the vault.
yeah.
So you can find Katie at katiericardson.com. What's Working Now is her podcast. I mean, it seems like it would be an irrational decision to not get involved in that. And
Yeah.
really just so blessed that you took your time to come in here. We actually went through some obstacles to even get our podcast launched today, and we succeeded with like
Yeah.
just true
Yeah.
colors. Thanks so
Can
much.
I
Yeah,
give a
go ahead.
gift to your audience?
Oh my God. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I've got some incredible things for you. If you just want to go to my Instagram handle, katie.live, and click the link in my bio. There's multiple different directions that you can go. There's one that says start here, and that's what I suggest and recommend. But I want everybody who's listening to know that I'm not very different from you. and that there's a lot of commonalities between you and I, and there's also tremendous potential within you. And there's going to be moments in your life, in your journey, where you come up against those big dark pits that are scary and uncomfortable and feel impossible. And I want everybody who's listening to know that I believe in you. And I believe in your ability to figure that out. So in those moments of doubt, just like my husband believed in me when I was ready to give up, I want you to lean on me. Lean on me, and you can know that Katie Richardson, this mother of four, this multi-million-dollar international entrepreneur, coach to high-performing entrepreneurs in Vancouver, Washington, that I believe in you.
And that is a gift. Everybody said, "What's the gift?" That is a gift and a blessing, just like potential. Katie, beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. This has been incredible.